Welcome back to the On the Pitch podcast with your host, Bridger Pretz. Today we're going to talk about a German official who calls for the official World Cup boycott of Germany for this 2026 World Cup. We also talk about Argentina, England, Netherlands, and Algeria housing themselves in Kansas City this summer. And we're also going to talk about a quick recap of the last MSHSAA State Championship boys soccer. All coming up on this episode. Welcome back to the podcast. We have a new sponsor for the show, and then they're called Daily Culture. Okay, Daily Culture is a kombucha brewing company right here in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, I'll read you a little bit about them. They are a Kansas City-based company brewing small batch organic kombucha with purpose. What started as a personal experiment turned into a mission to bring a healthier, tastier drink option to our community. Our kombucha is alive, rich with probiotics, beneficial acids, and real ingredients. No artificial flavors, no shortcuts, just bold, refreshing flavor that supports your gut and satisfies your taste buds. Welcome to the culture. Let's drink better. Now, I'll be honest, I was not a kombucha guy. Right? I had not tried it. My sister-in-law loves it. She was talking about, hey, you need to try these guys. They're called Daily Culture. They're right here in Kansas City. We have them at Hammerhand Brewing or coffee shop where she works. And I was like, why not? I'll try it a couple times. So I've had one or two. But funny enough, I actually wound up meeting one of the owners of Daily Culture, and we wound up just chatting away at one of our soccer games. So he is a soccer guy. We wound up just chatting away and talking about it, and he had mentioned that it was his company and that he, does his own thing. He started it himself, and honestly, I was like, you know what? Why don't I get you on? We'll bring you on as a sponsor and let me know what you think. And he asked me, he's like, I don't know about the money wise, but he was like, you know what can I do? And I was like, you know what, just give me a 6-pack of your finest kombucha and I'll try it out. And honestly, guys, it is really, really good. I really, really like the hazy mango. That is actually what I am sipping on right now as I record this. But if you are a kombucha lover and you're in the Kansas City area, please go check out Daily Culture. You can find them out at dailyculturekombucha.com. That is dailyculturekombucha.com. So even though I'm a little bit late going ahead and talking about this, we want to talk about the MSHSAA Boys State High School Soccer and how it turned out this year. Class 1 wound up being Veritas Christian Academy, who beat Lone Jack 3-0 in the final. Lone Jack being a smaller community right outside of Kansas City, and Veritas Christian, who was used to be called O'Fallon Christian back the last couple of years ago, wound up changing their name to Veritas. I think there was a funding issue. Things got kind of changed around a little bit, but now they're considered Veritas Christian. They had a dominant performance, 3-0 in the final, and honestly, it didn't really look like Lone Jack had a single prayer in that game. And then the third place game was Metro versus Lakeway in Richland. Lakeway coming out of the Springfield area and Metro coming out of St. Louis. So after really the Class 1, I don't have enough info on it really just to kind of go too in depth, mostly because I didn't have a chance to go see those games but from watching from the highlights. Lone Jack really just kind of looked out of their depth. Veritas was definitely a higher quality of team. You could definitely tell that they're more at that Class 2, Class 3 range when it comes to their talent. Moving on to Class 2. Now, this game I did get a chance to watch. Springfield Catholic wound up beating Principia 2-0 in the final, scoring probably two of the best goals I've ever seen in a high school soccer game. And you could definitely tell that Springfield was undefeated for a reason this entire season. Finishing the year, actually no, they did lose one game. They finished the year 30-1. Their one loss coming against Class 4 Ozark. Springfield Catholic has historically been a Class 2, Class 3 size school, and really when they dropped down to Class 2, I kind of had the feeling that they were going to wind up dominating the whole Class 2 and go all the way to the final. Principia looked okay. They didn't have anything crazy. I mean, they had a couple guys up front that looked good, but they had a couple dangerous situations, but Springfield Catholic honestly just ran the entire game, and they were the better team. Perryville dominated Harrisonville in the third place game 5-1. Harrisonville had a little bit of a scruff there towards the end, definitely with some frustration with how they played, but overall good showing by all four teams to get to the Final Four. Now Class 3, Van Horn won their first ever state championship 4-2 over Fort Zumwalt East. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Van Horn went down a man in the first, I want to say 15 minutes of the game. So they were down to 10 men and I think they were also down a goal. They came back and won 4-2. It's so crazy that Van Horn actually looked better being down to 10 men. You would think that Fort Zumwalt East would be able to possess, move the ball around, but honestly, Van Horn looked like the better team. And some of the goals that they scored, man, it was just unreal with what they did. Rockwood Summit dominated the third place game, beating Summit Christian Academy 6-0. Again, Summit Christian Academy, they really just didn't look, too good. They struggled to move the ball, but it is tough when you play against teams like Rockwood Summit, who have been in the Final Four before, and they have actually won state titles as well. And then moving on to Class 4, we have the state championship game, which was between SLU and Rockhurst. But I'm going to talk about the third place game first. Fort Zumwalt West beat Park Hill South. Now, obviously, if you've listened to any of the podcasts in the past, you would know that I am one of the assistant coaches for Park Hill South. And honestly, it was a very good game between Fort Zumwalt West and us. We wound up going up first with an amazing goal by Will Bound. And then, unfortunately, we struggled with a couple of set pieces. And, Fort Zumwalt West really kind of just knew how to win the ball in the air. And it was something that they've been good at all year. And they really just kind of showed why they were the number 3 team ranked in the state that year. The semifinal games, Fort Zumwalt West only lost to SLU 1-0. And Park Hill South lost to Rockhurst 4-0. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it was 1-0 after the first about 10 minutes for Rockhurst. But it was a pretty even affair, and Park Hill South was definitely defending more. But it was 1-0 until maybe the last 10 minutes. Park Hill South wanted to push for a goal, but unfortunately we got caught out and gave up 3 late goals in the end when we were pushing to try and get a goal. Because at that point, once you're down 1-0, what's the point of losing 2-0, 3-0? You've got to push for a win. You got to push for a goal. So Rockhurst wound up playing SLU in the state championship, and SLU, with a controversial PK call, wound up winning the game 1-0. There was a cross that came in from the right side of the field that went into the goalkeeper, and he gobbled it up. And as he was getting up, he bumped into a SLU player who kind of just went over, and the ref calls a PK on it. The goalie had possession of the ball and didn't push him with an arm, didn't punch him, didn't pull the guy down, but it was just like shoulder-to-shoulder bumping into each other. And the SLU player went down, and I would see why he would. But the referee to call a foul, a PK on that, when the goalie had possession of the ball, was a crazy, crazy call. I've never seen a call like that from a referee. Now, I'm sure he's gone back and looked over it and assessed what he's done. Unfortunately, he cannot take it back. But in my opinion, that should have just been a simple referee comes up, he blows his whistle, he tells the two boys to chill out, we shouldn't be running into each other. When the goalie's got the ball, stop yourself. And I know it's hard to stop when you're in full motion, you're going for the ball. But there should not have been a PK for that call. It was one of the weirdest calls I've ever seen, especially in a high school soccer game. In a state championship game. Unfortunately, that wound up being the only goal of the game. And it was a very good game. And I want to give a lot of credit to SLU. They defended really well. And their student section was wild. Their student section was cool. Their student section is one of those that you wish that you could have every single game. They showed why they travel well and why the state championship being in St. Louis really does benefit St. Louis teams. It really does. They had about 500 boys over there. Now, my numbers could be a little bit off, but their numbers were crazy. And that's the thing when Kansas City or Springfield teams come to St. Louis to play the state championship games, Final Fours, they do have to realize that there is going to be a benefit to St. Louis teams while they're in there. There needs to be a central location where teams go. Or it needs to be moved around a little bit easier. It should not be in St. Louis every year. This needs to be changed to either being in Jefferson City, Columbia, maybe Springfield, Kansas City every now and then. It does not need to be in St. Louis every year. For a while there, it changed a little bit. I remember it was in Springfield, I think, in 2020, or maybe that was 2021. And it's moved around a little bit. It was in Blue Springs. But for the last 4 or 5 years, it has stayed in St. Louis. And you've noticed there's a little bit of a dominance with St. Louis teams. Naturally, they are very good. I'm not doubting that St. Louis has a lot of talent in all of their high schools, private or public. But there needs to be a switch. It needs to be more of a central location. Kids should not have to drive 4 or 5 hours on a bus to play a game. and then have to go 4 or 5 hours back when you have some kids who drive 20 minutes. And their parents and their whole families and their entire school gets to be there for them, whereas the Kansas City schools don't. Here's the thing. If it's in a central location, I think MSHSAA makes more money. For one, they don't have to move all that equipment to St. Louis. Plus, more parents, more fans are going to be willing to travel to Jeff City or Columbia. Now, I don't know where that would be. I know Jefferson City's building a facility. Boonville cannot host it. They do not have the facilities for it. They got the fields, but they don't have the stands. They don't have the concession stands. They don't have the live streaming. They don't have the scoreboards. Maybe Columbia or Jefferson City can figure something out. That's all I have to say about boys soccer. Moving on to World Cup after this. This is not a political show, just fair warning. I really don't want to talk politics, but with the recent things that are going on in the United States, there was an article that popped up on my phone, and honestly, I was pretty surprised that it was popping up for me. It says that a German official calls for the World Cup boycott talks over Trump. I'll go ahead and read this. A German Soccer Federation Executive Committee member says it's time to consider a World Cup boycott because of the actions of U.S. President Donald Trump. Oki Gottlieb, the president of Bundesliga club St. Pauli and one of the German Federation's 10 vice presidents, told the Hamburger Morgensport, so Morning Post newspaper, in an interview on Friday that the time has come to seriously consider and discuss this. So it says Trump has sowed discord in Europe with the takeover bid for Greenland, a semi-autonomous territory of NATO member Denmark, and his subsequent threat to impose tariffs on 8 European countries who oppose the takeover. It left many of America's closest allies warning of a rupture with Washington capable of shattering the NATO alliance. He goes on to say, where were the justifications for the boycotts of the Olympic Games in the 1980s? He said, by reckoning the potential threat is greater than it was then. We need to have this discussion. The United States is co-hosting the World Cup from June 11th, July 19th, with Canada and Mexico. Fans have concerns about high ticket prices, while travel bans imposed by the Trump administration are also prohibiting supporters from some competing nations from attending. Gottlieb has called for the defense of values, is likely to meet resistance to calls for a boycott from the Federation President Bert Nondorf and FIFA President Gianni Infantino. He goes on to say, Qatar was too political for everyone, and now we're completely apolitical. That's something that really, really, really bothers me. He also said he would like to know from Donald Trump where he has reached his taboo and would like to know from Bernard Nudorf and Gianni Infantino. The life of a professional player is not worth more than the lives of countless people in various regions who are being directly or indirectly attacked or threatened by the World Cup host, he said. This was put on by ESPN, but it had popped up on my phone earlier that morning. And honestly, when in the back of my mind, when I was first reading this, I thought it was talking about the recent ICE raids or recent, really basically ticket prices, things like that a lot of the things with this World Cup that are happening. I didn't think that wanting to boycott a World Cup because of Greenland, that was not on my bingo card, as they say. What I believe on this is, he is more than willing to want to push a boycott from Germany. He is more than willing to discuss these. If a lot of people don't realize this, but if you know, you know. But if you don't know, you don't know. St. Pauli is a very political club. St. Pauli has very left-leaning ownership, very left-leaning fans, and they tend to have a feud between Hamburg, which is their city rival, who tends to be more of the right-leaning fans. They've both had scruffs in the past, and they are very, very, I guess you would say, left-leaning, liberal in their stances. They're very pro-LGBTQ. They're very pro, women's rights on abortion and things like that. It's one of those things where they are already a political club, and now they're voicing their opinion even louder to push more of their agenda and things like that. The Greenland thing, honestly, I don't have a huge opinion on it. I just did not think that there would be a push for a boycott, and ESPN or Apple News would have taken this story so big. It's one vice president who's pushing for this, who runs a club that tends to be very left-leaning. Now, do I think Greenland should be part of the United States? I really don't give a shit. Okay? It does not bother me. I think there are pros and cons to it. We have tons of things that we're already in debt for. Why are we spending billions of dollars to own Greenland? But I also realize that there is a war for resources. There's a war for resources that, like metal or precious metals, oil, coal, things like that. I understand that there's a battle. China is wanting to put bases there. Russia is wanting to put bases there. It's a strategic spot for the United States to be able to control the Atlantic Ocean. So I understand the positives to it. But there needs to be a better way of going about this than just trying to buy them off. There needs to be more of a push from the Greenlandic people. If the 50,000 people that live in Greenland are like, hey, we want to be part of, the United States. We are technically in North American continent. If it was more of the Greenlandic people pushing for this, would there be such an outcry for it? Would there be so much animosity to owning Greenland if the people were wanting it? Which I think there are some that do, and I think there's some that don't. I don't think they're huge fans of the United States when it comes to our politics. But I also understand that they receive a ton of resources from Denmark and from the NATO and from the EU because it is so tough to live there. Why wouldn't you want to receive, maybe more money or more resources from a closer country that is literally I think we're a lot closer to Greenland than Denmark is. And maybe that's going to benefit them. I don't really know. But I just thought it was a little bit weird that they pushed this story so hard because it's literally one German official who's trying to push for this. I don't think anything will come of it. I do not think Germany is going to boycott the World Cup. I think the German team has a lot more issues to be dealing with than Greenland or some politics about it. But you're always going to get this, especially around. I mean, there was this guy boycotting the Qatar World Cup. Whenever there was mass, they literally don't even have rights for women there or others. I mean, they're not the worst, but they're not the best. It's definitely a more dangerous place to live. Were they boycotting that? He was talking about the Russian games, the 1980 Russian games. But what about the Qatar World Cup? Did he want to boycott that? What about the Russian World Cup? Did he want to boycott that? Is he going to do the same thing when we go to Saudi Arabia? Just questions there for it. I don't think anything will come of it. I think he's just wanting to push his agenda and let his feelings be heard, and I understand that. And honestly, like I said, I don't think the Greenland thing is good for the United States necessarily. I think it needs to be going about a little bit easier, and if the Greenlandic people want to be part of the United States, let them be part of the United States. If they don't, then don't. That's all I have on that. We're going to move on to Argentina, England, and the Netherlands housing in Kansas City. Now, the World Cup is right around the corner, and I know you're excited about it, especially if you live in Kansas City. There was a post that happened the other day from Fox 4, and it says that Argentina, England, Netherlands, and Algeria to base 2026 World Cup camps in Kansas City Metro. It states here that Kansas City's role in the 2026 World Cup is poised to become even more significant. 4 highly placed sources have confirmed that to Fox 4 that 4 countries, Argentina, England, the Netherlands, and Algeria, will call the Kansas City Metro home during the 2026 World Cup, basing their training camps in the region for the tournament. The sources spoke to Fox 4 on the condition of anonymity, as they're not yet authorized to comment publicly about this. Okay? Tuesday afternoon, we've since learned that Algeria will be here too. Sources say Argentina will train at Compass Minerals National Performance Center in Kansas City, Kansas, at Sporting Kansas City's facilities. So, looks like Sporting Kansas City FC will have Messi training there this summer. That is pretty cool, in my opinion. England will be at the Swope Soccer Village in Kansas City, Missouri. Algeria is headed to Rock Chalk Park in Lawrence, and the Netherlands will train in Riverside at the Kansas City's current facilities. Okay, so a lot of people realize, if you've listened to the show before, you know that I am at Park Hill South High School, and that means that the Netherlands are going to be training right in my back door. So that is super exciting, especially Riverside. If you've ever been to Kansas City Current's facilities, you definitely need to go check it out because it is probably some of the best facilities, especially not just facilities for a women's soccer team, but facilities for a soccer team in general. Very, very nice facilities. And it'll be really cool to see the Netherlands train. I'm sure they're going to have some kind of restrictions. They're not going to allow you just to sit there and record and watch them because obviously it's a World Cup. They're gonna be working on things. They're gonna be hiding things that they're doing. They're not gonna want to have everybody just looking and seeing what they're doing. So there's going to be some rules and things like that they're going to have on people wanting to come and visit. But I'm going to do my best to try and get out there and record some stuff and maybe do some content and things like that. So I'm really excited about that. It also says, among the countries choosing the Kansas City region as a base camp is Argentina, the defending World Cup champions, who will begin their title defense at Arrowhead Stadium, marking one of the most high-profile matches Kansas City has ever hosted. It is circulated in international media outlets, particularly regarding Argentina and England's interest in Kansas City as a preferred base location. While FIFA has not yet formally announced team base camps, selections are typically finalized well ahead of the tournament to allow teams to coordinate logistics, training sites, and security. Hosting multiple elite national teams would bring extended stays, global media attention, and significant economic impact well beyond match days. Unless you're getting Spain, Brazil, and France in different markets, there is no better concentration of A, quality teams, B, star power, and C, fanatic or corporate partners that are going to be essentially crashing Kansas City for a very long time. This is going to be nuts. Just imagine the fandom that's going to be dealing when it comes to the games. But imagine you have Messi, you have a chance to go see him train every day. You don't think that they're not going to have hundreds of people outside that training facility every single day during this World Cup, especially if it's someone who can't afford a ticket, right? If you can't go to the games, you'd at least want to go see him train. Imagine the things that he does when he's relaxed, calm, doesn't have the pressure of fans or pressure of another team. I bet you his training is just nuts. So I bet you there's going to be high security. They're going to have people that are going to have to go shopping for them, things like that. It's not like you're not going to see Messi at a Walmart or a Sunfresh or a Quick Trip or a Casey's, heaven forbid, right? You're not going to see any of that. But you are going to see some businesses like close. I mean, there's going to be something for them to do, when they are not training. So they're probably going to have to rent out facilities or rent out restaurants or bars or pubs or something for the guys to do with their families while they're here at the World Cup. So you might see things like that. You're not going to see them at a Sunfresh or a Walmart or a Quick Trip. You're not going to see them out and about. You're going to be protected. They are going to be secured. That is what it's for. They are there to win a World Cup. They are not there just to give you a selfie every time they go to the bathroom somewhere in a public place, right? Make sure that you are not those people, Kansas City. And I know you let our Chiefs guys do their thing, but the guys who are coming in, the fans that are coming in, they're a little bit more fanatical than KC Chiefs fans. I'll just tell you that right now. Kansas City is thrilled with our outstanding match draw and are excited for base camp opportunities that will showcase more of our community to the world. We look forward to learning more and sharing more as FIFA and national sides share their base selections, the mayor posted. This is going to bring in a ton of money for Kansas City. Obviously, World Cups always do. And I'm super excited about it. The fact that you're going to have top-level talent training and being around the city that you live in, and you're in Kansas City, it's remarkable. And it's something that only happens every 15 to 20 years. Because, again, we haven't hosted the World Cup since 1994. With everything going on in this crazy world, this is pretty good positive thing for Kansas City, especially with the Chiefs leaving. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother podcast. That's American football, but I won't get too into that, right? Hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I know I haven't done one in a while. I've been pretty busy with life and work and all of that stuff, and more episodes will come soon. Thank you so much, and make sure you listen to some other podcasts. Make sure you follow on YouTube, Twitter. Make sure you follow on Instagram as well as Spotify. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.